Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesdays at 1 show. So glad you're here with me. So glad you are joining me in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. Today on our show, we have Karen Vasso. She's the founder of Neighbors Acre Farms, and she's a grower of microgreens. But she is so much more. Before we get started with the show, I want to make sure that everybody understands what we do here at the Wednesdays at 1 show. The Wednesdays at 1 show is an opportunity for you, yes, you, to come on and talk about your brand, your business, your cause, your story. It's a platform for people to really have a megaphone for their voice. Each week, my shows are watched live by you guys who are here today. Thank you so much for being here. But it's seen hundreds of times after the fact. If you watch the show regularly, you know that we had a 25 show anniversary a few weeks back. And if I were to go back and do all the math and look at all the views of all the shows, right? We're talking about close to 3,000 views, right? 3,000 individual views over the course of 25 shows. So that's a really great place to be in terms of elevating your brand. So without further ado, I want to bring in our founder and farmer. Her name is Karen Vasso. She is the founder and farmer at Neighbors Acre. Karen, thank you so much for being here. How is everything?
Hi, Eric. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Everything's going well, as you can see behind me. I've got lots growing.
So I'm not surprised at that at all. You always have a lot growing, including a budding business, and it's called Neighbors Acre Farm. Now, I know the story, but I want you to tell people first about the name, and then secondly, tell me a little bit about the story of your business.
Okay. Well, the name was actually kind of an accident. It was just one of those things that I was joking around with a friend. I live on an acre of land, and I had often dreamed about turning it into a small scale farm, put a little farm stand out front so I could put vegetables and fruit out for my neighbors to come and enjoy. So we just joked about it being called the Neighbor's Acre, and when I eventually did get my business started growing microgreens, I kept it. It made sense. And as far as how the business itself got started, I had farm dreams for a very long time, but really never had access to farm communities until probably in my early 30s, when I was a single mom. I began shopping the farmers market because I had been laid off from a job very unexpectedly, and obviously money was very, very tight. So I kind of started shopping the farmer's market because of the farmer's market, I could buy unit by unit and I could really only get what I needed. And as I began to do that, I started to build relationships with the farmers that were there. And I was super curious, asking them all these questions. And I just got really interested in it. But what struck me most was just the relationships that I was building with these farmers. And they're so generous just in their nature. And so I began to understand how abundant food can be when you're growing it, when you're the grower. So I took a job at a local organic farm, working in the fields and in the washroom. And I got into the greenhouse one day and tried the microgreens. And I said, whoa, these are kind of good. These are really good. So I started kind of growing them for my family. And then I thought, oh no, what happened if I just put up a farmer's market booth and started selling them there? Let's see how the community would respond. And I absolutely fell in love with the farmers markets, the farmers market community. I'd already had personal experience as a consumer, but it was amazing to be on the other side of it. I just loved it so much, and it just kind of went from there.
Well, I mean, it went from there is an understatement, because I'm looking over your shoulder, and what I see is an amazing display. And actually, a friend mutual to us, Andy, wowza, look at all of those gorgeous microgreens, right? I mean,
Hi,
look at
Andy.
that, right? Andy is a great friend, I know, to both of us. And yeah, I'm looking at that. I've never seen this operation like this. So tell me a little bit about what's going on behind you there.
So on the top rack here, sorry, I'm all backwards. On the top rack here, these are my starts, my seedlings that are going to start to go into my garden. I have a bunch more that are already being hardened off outside, but these are the really warm weather ones that aren't quite ready to go outside yet. But the other ones are microgreens. So I just have all different varieties in varying stages of growth. I seed usually 2 to 3 times a week, and I harvest 2 to 3 times a week, um, depending on what it's for.
So that means that when someone comes upon your booth at a farmer's market, or makes an order online, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, they're literally getting stuff that is as fresh as it could possibly be, because you're harvesting 2 to 3 times a week.
Yep. Well, and I generally try to harvest right before the order is due. So that's sort of something that I try to set up with my delivery times and so on and so forth, to make sure that I can harvest and right away get it out. But at the market, you'll actually get it even fresher than that, because I harvest live at the market. So my sort of idea for microgreens is I lay my beautiful trays out on the tables, and people can come and choose whatever combination they want, and I can make whatever mix they want to order. So they're getting it right there. No refrigeration, nothing. It's just straight off the tray.
Mm-hmm. So, guys, I can tell you that whenever I have a guest, I try to go in and look at their social media and see kind of what they have. I am imploring you, go to Neighbors Acres social media channels. They have some incredible photos of not just microgreens, but pictures of Karen and her family, and farmers markets. And it's really something that for me was an eye opener. I met you, Karen, a couple of years ago when you were in a cohort. Is that right?
That's correct. I was accepted into the E4L Lowell Lawrence cohort for summer of, oh gosh, what was that? 2019, right? Right before the
I
pandemic.
believe so, yes.
And yeah, and you were one of the presenters, which I was so very impressed. I was very engaged with your marketing presentation. It was so very eye-opening for me, and you really helped me sort of understand the story that I was trying to tell. and give me tools to be able to put that message out. So I appreciated that so much. So I'm really thankful to be on the show now and have this conversation with you.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm surprised that you said that. That's great, though. Thank you so much. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, one of the things that I do with the people that I work with is I always start where they are, right? It's not a tear down, it's not a makeover. It's really start where you are and build on that, right? And I could see in you all those years ago now, it feels like we have a lost year in there in between, but um, I knew that you were passionate about this. I mean, and I've seen you at the indoor farmers market in Lowell. So tell me a little bit about that particular farmers market and your experience there.
So the farm market at Mill Number Five in Lowell, it has traditionally been an indoor year-round market. Now, obviously, with the pandemic, we have tried to move. Last spring they moved us outside right away when the pandemic hit, which was awesome that we were. I mean, I'm so thankful that Jim, the man, the owner, was able to give us that opportunity to meet the needs of the community because there were shortages of food in some areas, and our area was one of them. And so by moving us outside, we were very quickly able to pivot and meet the needs of the community. So now we're staying outside for as long as we can. We were indoors over the winter, very spread out, obviously, but now we're back outside. And I just love that market. It's such an amazing community to be part of. And the vendors there, we're real diehards, we're very close to each other. We promote each other. There's a real sense of cooperation, collaboration, community, like all the things that you want in a market. There's very little competition. It's very, we have a lot of regular customers whom we adore and we're so appreciative for. They really come and they do their grocery shopping, and it's great. It's really a nice place to shop.
Well, I know that the farmers market life is it's rewarding. It's real people, it's real connections. You're trying to do business, but it's a commitment. It's a lifestyle, right? It's something that you have to really, really love what you do, and there's absolutely no doubt that you love what you do. One of the things that you mentioned was how um, how important these greens are in cooking and everything like that. And if people have watched this show, I've done a lot of cooking shows.
Oh,
I've
okay.
done a lot of ingredients and just the joy of cooking. And when you and I talked about doing this show together, we talked about how much we've come home to have meals more so this last year than ever before, and how people are really focused in on the sourcing of their food.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about what you've learned in terms of people's relationship with locally sourced foods over the last year.
Well, I would say that it's definitely become a little bit more of a priority over a wider demographic than previously, than pre-COVID. We saw that almost immediately when there were shortages. It was like all of a sudden people were like, "Oh, well, if I can't go to the grocery store, where do I go?" And the farmers markets, or parking lots. I mean, there were farmers, vendors that were just parking themselves in parking lots just to get their food out, and so, uh, and a lot of them have stayed, which is great because really, if we're looking at a system of let's say the food system is, for example, what we're discussing here, the shortest chain is really the most efficient and ultimately the most healthy for both the local economy and for your own body. What we're growing locally is going to have the nutrients that we need based on the just the freshness, and just because it's grown here where we're living, our bodies are taking in something that is really part of the environment around us. And so there's really an interconnectedness that, not to get all woo woo, but it does go a little bit deeper than just eating a meal, from a biological perspective. So that's one thing. The other thing that I've noticed is just, I was really, really impressed by how quickly the local food system was able to mobilize. You know,
Yes.
I'm thinking about Mill City Grows, like how fast they got that system in place to help people immediately who needed it. It was so fantastic to be a part of that. It was glorious, if I could, throw it out there, because that's exactly what the food system is supposed to be. It was, the opportunity of a lifetime, really, from the perspective of those of us who have this in our heart already. We were well positioned.
No, absolutely. And I am continuously amazed at what you're doing, how you've adjusted, and how really people, I can tell you, we talked a little bit before the show. I've cooked more at home this year than I have probably in the last 5 years combined. And so just beginning to understand the importance of fresh, healthy ingredients.
Yep.
Not only is it good for you, but they taste amazing. And I know that you have some great shots of some food on your sites that I'm showing people now. And I'm like, yeah, I want to eat every single one of those right now. I mean, just what you add in terms of aesthetically, what it looks like, and even just the health benefits, but also the incredible flavor and taste. I don't know if you remember this, but I was feeling a little bit proud of myself one day, and I had made some tacos or something, and I posted it online. I'm like, I made these tacos, and immediately I heard from you. You're like, you need to have greens on those tacos. That will be the perfect. Yeah, and I was like, yes. I feel like, honestly, when I was telling people about this show, I was saying, you know, Karen says microgreens are everything. I feel like they are everything. They make everything better, right? I mean, how many things in the world can you say about that? But microgreens, who would have thought it? I mean, honestly, I think before I met you, I don't know that I ever even said the word microgreen. And now I can't stop saying it. So, and it is a great, addition to any meal. I promise you. Tell the people. Well, let me just go into the comments quickly just to say hello to my friends. Right. Welcome back. Good morning from Las Vegas to my very good friend Sean Shoemate. I know Sean is a connoisseur of fine cuisine, and he's actually very adventurous. So, Sean, I'm going to encourage you to get microgreens in your life. And hello to Lynn and Liana, right? Liana was the executive director of the cohort that you were in at Eat for All. She's amazing. I think she's moved on. She's like the president of all cohorts ever created now or something. I know she's moving on up. And Lynn Haskell Dean, I love Fresh. I can't wait to hear about ordering online. So that's a perfect segue, right? We know that a lot of our commerce is done online, and microgreens are no different, right?
Yep. Well, now that's true. I think that was probably the biggest, most stressful transition for me, was like moving everything into an online platform, which I previously didn't have one. I didn't really need one. I was at the market, was at all kinds of markets, but markets were shutting down, and we had a good long season of some markets only being online ordering and pre-ordering, which was a very different business model for me, and not something that I had originally intended for my business. So, but we're up and running now, and so I do deliveries. We deliver at the market, so it would be a market pickup in general at any of the farmers markets where I am. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And online here, we know that local online, you can find Neighbors Acres, and there's a whole host of things that are happening on that site in terms of what people can see.
Yes. Yep. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, so I have a list of my products. I also offer Fat Moon gourmet mushrooms as part of my ordering options. So I've partnered with a wonderful woman-owned business that's local, and she grows the most beautiful mushrooms I've ever seen. And in fact, I didn't even like mushrooms until I started eating Elizabeth's Fat Moon mushrooms, and now they're also a part of my daily life, my diet, my routine, and so I offer those as well.
No, that's great. And I am so excited to let people know about you, let people know about microgreens, let people know about where they can find you, where they can see you, how they can reach out to you. And I know that you even, people will email you directly.
Yes, yep, you can
and,
email me
and,
directly.
and, and they go through social media.
Yes, yep.
And they do all of these things. All of these things are things that maybe weren't a big part of what you did prior to last year, but now are a central part of what you do this year.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Now it's definitely much more the mainstream, and now I have to, you know, I have to keep tabs on that and make decisions about what kind of platforms I want to be using. And a lot of the markets will. We had some markets over the winter that had their own platforms that they wanted us to use. So sometimes my stock will be split up over a number of different ordering platforms, depending on where your pickup is, as opposed to it being all in one place. So definitely knowing which market you want to come to will help me direct you into the right platform for ordering. And obviously, if you are coming to the market and you don't want to pre-order, I'll have all these beautiful greens just as you see them here on the table at the Harvest Live.
Mm-hmm. That is incredible. And I've seen your display at farmers markets before, and it's just like, you create a little meadow right on a table, right? They're still planted. You literally have like these gardener shears
Yeah,
and you just cut them right off right then and there. So I've purchased them before, I've used them before, I've loved them before, and I need more microgreens in my life. And so we'll talk about that after the show. But yes,
definitely.
this is something that is really um, something that I want people to know about. Now, let me just ask you because I always kind of describe you as, founder and farmer. What is it like to be a farmer?
Wow. So in the context of microgreens, it's very similar to having livestock in the sense that it's a living thing that has to be taken care of on a daily basis. I can't just go away for the weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I have to be monitoring these little babies twice a day to make sure that they're watered, to make sure their airflow is good, to make sure that the humidity is right, the temperature is right. So there's a lot going on there. And I can't say enough about having my hands in the dirt. I love it. I grow in soil. I grow in organic soil. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's fun for me. It's a very meditative thing to be seeding, to be harvesting, to be, I have to plan things out, for the markets. I'm constantly making adjustments based on, you know, uh, what sells best at each individual market. And each variety of microgreen has its own needs. So some of them like things a lot warmer, some of them like it cooler, some like more moisture, some like less. So I'm constantly having to sort of like make adjustments to the individual trays or varieties needs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a big puzzle. And then obviously putting all my stuff into my car for a farmer's market is really just a big giant game of Tetris. Like, that's really
Yeah.
all it is. But it's a lot of physical work, which I absolutely love. My background is in competitive swimming. So for me, the physicality of it is something I really, really engage with and enjoy. I love like that I'm not sitting in front of a desk and I always have to really push myself to like sit down and do my admin work because I'd really much rather be lifting and moving and
Yeah,
I just enjoy that, standing and conversing with people. That's much more of my wheelhouse.
absolutely. So I have a question
Okay.
from a DJ, Junior Swoosh. Do you partner up with local food banks to donate overages and prevent waste? That's a really good question.
It's a
Thank
great
you,
question.
Swoosh.
Yeah, swoosh. I have had some connection with food banks, but to be honest with you, I have a really low level of waste. I I seed what I sell, and that's, you get a really good flow for that. Occasionally there's an overage, but what I can tell you that I do is I do partner with Mill City Grows. I help them out in some ways. Um,
Hmm.
and I also have partnered with a local chicken farmer. He pastures chickens for meat and eggs. Nally Pastures. He's also at Mill Number 5 in Lowell. He's local here in Drake. And we have a system that his chickens get what's left of the cut greens, and they get to eat those, and then it gets composted, and then we recycle it into soil for our gardens and so on and so forth. So it is a wasteless system. I have it set up to be a wasteless system. I'd love to do more with food banks, but I'm not really growing at the volume that it would really matter for a food bank. I just don't have
Hmm.
that much waste.
No, I understand that, but I think that that was a great question because I
It's
think that
awesome.
what we find out um, in sort of the lane that you reside, right? You're a farmer.
Yep,
You have you certainly are paying attention to the environment and creating environments and selling healthy foods and attending uh, farmers markets and doing all of that. So I think that just in that lane that you occupy, there is a natural partnership with food banks and people that are trying to help people eat better and have access to better foods and fresher foods. So I think the whole thing sort of it's all rowing in the same direction, right? Where
absolutely.
you occupy, where you do your business, because um, I think I want people to really know about what Karen does. She's been sort of modest about, what she does and how she does it. And I know she loves it, but what she's doing, ladies and gentlemen, is not an easy road. There are easier roads where Karen could be doing lots of good things for people and providing good products and helping people eat healthier. But this particular path that Karen has taken through Neighbors Acre Farm is a particularly challenging road. And she does it like it's nothing. She makes it look good. When I asked you earlier, what is it like to be a farmer? When I look at you, Karen, I don't see overalls. I don't see I don't see some straw sticking out the side of your hair. I see someone who's a very knowledgeable professional who has put a lot of time and consideration into the cultivation of these particular items for people to use and eat healthier with. So I want people to understand what you're doing is, if it's something that people were considering doing, it's not easy. But the good news for me is that I can benefit from all of your labor and your thoughtfulness. And so I appreciate that. So I want to make sure that people know that about you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, um, so I want to switch gears a little bit because we were talking about eating at home and how people access food.
Mhm.
What's been your biggest challenge in terms of A, getting the word out to people about what this is, and B, helping to educate people about how food ends up on your table?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. When I first started when I first threw up my booth at the Chelmsford Farmers Market is where I had my start. And no one knew what they were. No one knew what I was there doing. They thought, oh, do we plant them? Like, what do they look like when they get big? And I had all kinds of questions about what they were. And so it was the first year, I would say, pretty solidly was educating educating my customers and letting them know that this is, you know, an edible product, and what is the value that it brings to their life. And the value that it brings to their life is 4 to 40% more nutrient density than the mature counterparts. These are just baby vegetables. For those of you who get into science, this is actually, we would call these the cotyledon. It's the very first leaves that appear when you plant a seed. And those leaves are the first part of the plant to become photosynthetic. So they're responsible for beginning the process of making food for the plant. And the cotyledon also stores an enormous amount of energy and nutrients in those leaves, because what happens after this stage is what we call the true leaf, the first leaf. And so that first true leaf is a very large push of growth for the plant, and it uses that stored energy from the cotyledon to make that push. So by harvesting and eating that cotyledon, we're getting all of that nutrient density in a very small, condensed, very palatable, very versatile package, basically. And we get a lot of flavor because they do take on the flavor of the mature plant. So your broccoli microgreen is going to taste like broccoli. And I don't know if any of you have tried micro herbs, but they far outperform the full grown version of herbs. They're just so rich and delicious.
That is amazing. And I don't think that people really know that about what the flavor punch that microgreens deliver. And you're telling me that they outperform full-grown mature herbs.
They do. They do. They have a
That's
little bit of a different
incredible.
flavor. Yeah. And they're much easier to use, right? They're no prep. You don't have to like chop it up, you know. For those of us who are busy and we are cooking at home more, but we're really trying to do it, you know, but it's hard. These are so easy to just reach in, rinse them off a little bit, plop them on whatever you're eating, and you're done. You know, and say you want pizza that night. We are not above putting microgreens on our pizza, on our nachos. You know, again, like you in your tacos, right? You know, instead of lettuce, you're going to get a much more you're going to get much more bang for your buck by using microgreens rather than, say, a shredded lettuce.
So Sudi, who's watching, says, Karen, you are inspiring. I love hearing about your business. Since microgreens are delicate, what's the best way to wash them? Excellent question, Sudi.
It is a great question. So for some of the hardier ones, you can spray rinse them for like your sunflowers, your pea shoots. Those are fine to sort of like spray with a sprayer on, you know, gently in your kitchen. Another way to do it, and this is what we do on farms, this is how they do it with very delicate types of greens, such as arugula is very delicate. You just have a bowl of cool water and you can just sprinkle them in there and just gently kind of press them in and then lift them out. That's a nice way to do it. You can gently pat with some paper towel, or if you're not using paper towels, if you're using regular cotton towels, like a flour sack towel or something, to just absorb some of the moisture. That's about it. Just make sure you don't wash and put them back in the fridge. That will.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Tacos. Okay, now you're speaking my language. Yes, me too. I can tell you, Karen. I mean, this is probably gonna maybe gross some people out, but when I purchased microgreens from you, I literally watched you cut them and put them into the container and give them to me, and I'm pretty sure I did not wash them. I just put them onto the food and ate them, and I think that it was fine. I'm okay. It was delicious.
I hear that a lot. They don't have a lot of the sunflowers have contact with the soil. The beets have contact with the soil. The others don't really have contact with the soil. The leaves. I
Right.
bottom water.
And you don't need a pesticide inside of
No.
your house there.
Nope, no, I don't have any issues with bugs or mold because my temperature and my environment is very controlled, and everything is sanitized after use. You know, being small like this gives me that ability. I can keep a very clean environment, and that helps a lot. So yeah, I don't have to use any chemicals at all.
Well, I'll tell you that as someone who's had your microgreens, first of all, they are amazing. They are the great enhancer. And the fact that they enhance the flavor, but also are really good for you is just a double, it's a win win, right?
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
But what I can tell you is that when you get them, you get more inspired. You're like, yeah, this can go on all kinds of things. You get a little more adventurous. And then the reverse happens. It's like, okay, now I want to make this thing specifically to add these microgreens to. So they can enhance whatever it is you are making, but also they can inspire you to say, you know what, I think this would be great on a salad, or this would be great on this dish. Like I see one here that's like, it looks like it's like a grilled cheese and tomato with, some microgreens there, which I just think it looks amazing. So this is the beauty of the microgreen, right? There's no wrong answers. You can't mess it up. If it's something that you can't mess up, that's for me
We're
because
in, right? Well, and I think too, so first of all, I just want to address the first part of that. It's a very fun game to play at the farmer's market. I'll have somebody and so they've tried them for the first time. They come home, they come back the next week and they're like, all right, I like that, but I bet you can't figure out what I should put on this dish. And I'll say, oh yeah, you want mustard on this one. Oh, I didn't think of that. So we do. We get. I love that interaction of like the creativity that can jump, and I learn a lot from my customers too. I love it when they post their photos, and I try to repost them and save them. Just so that I myself can have some good, inspiring ideas to continue to use them because people use them in really, really creative ways, and I love that. The other thing I was going to say is that for children who don't like vegetables, I have a large following from kids. The kids really tend to really like them because they're so delicate. They don't have weird textures and the flavor is there, but they're not getting the weird textures. Like, they tend to kind of shy away from vegetables, but the microgreens, I mean, I get people all the time. They're like, I bought microgreens and we drove home and my daughter ate them in the car before we even got home. Like just like chips, a bag of chips. And I love hearing that because that was one of the things I noticed with my kids too. My daughter, when I first started growing, I couldn't keep her out of the growing room. She kept coming in and pinching the tops off and eating them. And I'm like,
yeah.
crazy, let's grow your own, like here,
Yeah.
these are yours, these are mine, and so that's a big selling point for a lot of parents is that their kids will engage with the microgreens too. And that helps them get the nutrition the kids need.
So you mentioned some pairings and some different ideas. What are some of the dishes that you like that you make when you're using your own products?
Oh gosh, we could talk for days on that because I literally do. I literally do just put them on everything. So, the obvious first thing that people want to try is to put it on a salad, which is great. That's a perfectly respectable way. They're like, I just want like a bed of whatever fresh greens, and then I'll plop whatever microgreens on top, and I'm getting flavor, I'm getting color, I'm getting, everything that I need without having to chop vegetables. Like that's the first obvious thing. But the next thing is when you can start really pairing. So I guess in the pictures, one of those that was like a ham and vegetable egg scramble, and I put scallion microgreens on top. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
scallions on eggs. And the mustard mix is what's on the grilled cheese sandwich. That's Asian greens with arugula and mustard and burgers, sandwiches, that is a top choice for that. Eggs also, I had a chef friend who loved using it on her eggs. And then the micro herbs are great you can use them to bake into breads. You can use them to sprinkle on top of soups. You can, I mean, just really anything. Yeah, the possibilities are really as endless as your own creativity. And that makes it really fun. There's no rules.
No, that's great. So, as we start to wrap up, I want to know what's next for Neighbors Acre Farm.
Okay. Oh, all right. So this summer we are in 4 farmers markets. One of them a little more scantily, but we're going to be in Tewksbury on some select Thursdays. That's a new market that we're trying out. The market itself is fairly new, so that's sort of on a trial basis. So please come check that market out and let's make it fly, right? You know, we need some good markets in our area. And then we have on Saturdays, I'll be in Wakefield. I was there last year. That's a phenomenal market. You can't ask for a more beautiful location. It's right by the lake there on Main Street in Wakefield, or I think it's High Street in Wakefield. No, that's Somerville. I think it's Main Street in Wakefield. And they have a big park there. So we're all spread out. So there's room for a lot of people to be very safely distanced. And the vendor lineup is just top notch. I'll be in Newburyport. That's also a new market for us. We'll be there on Sundays, beginning, I believe, the 19th of June. And I'm super excited about that one. That also has, again, another level up of really, really wonderful vendors. We'll still be at mill number 5 in Lowell, which is, I still consider my home market. And so Chelmsford's not running a market this year, so Lowell has had to become my home. And so that's an all year round market. So that's where you can find me now until the middle of June.
And you mentioned that this is actually the growing season for your microgreens.
So, well, it's kind of the off season. This is what we call in farming the shoulder season, where you're kind of in between. You're kind of done with your winter vegetables, or summer vegetables aren't quite up yet. It's kind of this in between period. So right now there's not a ton of farmers markets except for our lovely mill number 5 in Lowell that goes year round. So fresh vegetables still can be had. You can still come and find a really nice, beautiful variety and see some other artisanal products. You know, for example, chicken, eggs, jams, jellies, preserves from Grateful Taste. So many different vendors. Samira's Homemade, Drew's Stews. That we just have so much to offer. So it's, even though it's kind of a shoulder.
And you guys are kind of like brothers and sisters. You guys are kind of like, you see a lot of the same people at the markets and it's like, and some of your actual items are complementary to other items that people are selling. So you probably make those connections as well.
We do. So if you look at my Facebook or my Instagram, and the other, I'm always doing collaboration posts with different vendors, because we like to use each other's stuff. And there's so many creative, amazing things out there that these artisans are doing. And in my mind, it used to be that like high-end food was in a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the perception that we have. But and there's nothing like a chef who can take these raw ingredients, right, and make it into something absolutely spectacular. So I don't mean to diminish that in any way. I guess my point is we don't have to wait to go to a high-end restaurant or spend that kind of money to eat in a high-end restaurant to get high-end quality food, because your local vendors are the ones who are taking those raw ingredients and making it into something for you to take home and experiment with and try. And you end up with your own brand of things that you and your family enjoy. And they are much healthier. I always thought it was a myth that there's chocolate out there that you can just have one square of and be satisfied. But I'm telling you, it's true. When you get that high, very, low processed, very cleanly sourced product and you get somebody who can make it into something, it's the satisfaction is incomparable.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I have had my eyes opened by your microgreens. I have to say that. I mean, there's like a whole other level of sophistication, of flavor, of just sort of even texture. There's so many things that your microgreens add to literally anything that your imagination can conjure. So for that, I'm forever grateful to you, Miss Karen Vasso. And I'm also 1,000% thankful that you took some time today to share your story and tell us about Neighbors Acre Farm. It has been an incredible pleasure to see you and to hear from you and talk about microgreens.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. I'd say the feeling is very mutual. I love talking about microgreens. So anytime anybody calls me and says, hey, you want to talk about microgreens? They'll sign me right up.
No, so with that, I want to say thank you. I'm going to ask you to just stand by and then I'll talk to you after we get through the end of the show. But I wanted to just make sure that everybody knows that if you're interested in Karen's products, or if you're interested in ordering online, Karen is an incredible farmer. She's a nurturer. She's a shepherd when it comes to microgreens. I want you guys to reach out to her directly, go online and order, and support this local farmer, this local artisan. She is providing food and flavor and really giving us an education on what's possible right here in our local economy. So I want to thank Karen once again. I want to thank all of you for watching today. We'll be back next week with another incredible show. It'll be hard to top this show because this one had so many great elements to it. A lot like microgreens will add to your cuisine going forward. So I want to thank Karen again. I want to thank all of you. I will see you guys next Wednesday at 1.